Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a very special brand new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Today we are talking about the latest studio album from Voivod entitled Synchro Anarchy. And this is kind of a big deal for a number of reasons. First off, Voivod is one of my all-time favorite fucking bands. Their fusion of prog rock and avant-garde and very angular, hyper-technical music with like Canadian thrash and old-school heavy metal and sci-fi concepts is nothing short of remarkable. They've got one of the most unique and exciting sounds out there, one that has evolved a lot over the course of their career. Records like Killing Technology, Dimension Hatros, and Nothing Face in particular are absolute masterpieces of sci-fi, technical, progressive, avant-garde thrash metal, whatever the fuck we want to call this sound. Synchro Anarchy is the band's 15th studio album overall, and their first without any significant lineup changes in close to a decade, and it is their first album since having won a Juno Award, which is basically Canada's equivalent to a Grammy Award, back in 2019. So, yeah, there is good reason, a lot of good reason, to be extremely excited about Synchro Anarchy, and as such, I had no issue whatsoever proclaiming this one of my most anticipated albums of 2022 back in December of 2021. A video that I have to assume the metal gods themselves paid very close attention to, because it wasn't long after that video was placed online and released to all of y'all that I received a promo copy for Synchro Anarchy and began jamming the ever-living fuck out of it. And having done so, I feel very, very comfortable saying that this isn't just Voivod's best modern album, it might just be one of their best albums, period. Don't get me wrong, I have thoroughly enjoyed Voivod's 2010s output. The multiple EPs and singles they've released, live albums, and of course studio albums like Target Earth and the Juno Award-winning The Wake. But this? Wow. Fucking wow, dude. It's very twisted and angular and demented, like some of the more classic kind of speed metal, thrash metal stuff like War and Pain, Roar, Killing Technology. It's very funky, it's very weird, it's very trippy. There are a lot of psychedelic soundscapes and textures, a lot of prog metal, prog rock arrangements that in theory would not have been out of place on something like Dimension Hatros or Nothing Face. And despite the very intense and convoluted kind of sci-fi, technical thrash, psychedelia, prog metal, whatever the fuck, the production value of the record itself is actually very organic and down to earth. In an interview I did with Voivod's lead singer Dennis Snake Belanger right here on the Metal Meltdown very recently, Snake talked a lot about the End of Dormancy live EP and the Lost Machine live album and some live streams that Voivod hosted last year and how they specifically shaped the sound of this album. He essentially told me that the successes of these projects inspired Voivod to approach Synchro Anarchy less like your typical big-budget studio album and more like a live album. As such, there is a lot more collaboration, there's a lot more improvisation, there's a lot more gut instinct, as Snake put it. And as such, Synchro Anarchy does legitimately feel a little bit more chaotic, a little bit more energetic, a little bit more violent and unpredictable than anything else we've really heard from Voivod in the past decade, or I would argue maybe the past 20 years. Quite fittingly, opening track Paranormalium is guaranteed to be a bona fide banger live. There are tons of tempo changes, tons of big, gnarly, bouncy fucking grooves. It's got a great hook, it's got some great guitar harmonies that are super weird and super demented and super trippy. It's also got some more extreme bursts of like classic thrash and speed metal flavor. Like, there is a lot of momentum and high-octane energy being built up in this track, and remarkably, none of it is compromised even as it begins to slow down and introduce some quieter arrangements and almost spoken-word style vocal chanting. I would even go as far as to argue that this section helps to cement Perron as a bona fide fucking banger, as shortly after this very quiet and ominous breakdown, the band rips into some more gnarly, juicy, proggy thrash metal grooves. You've also got Planet Eaters and the album's title track, Synchro Anarchy, which have this very disjointed, angular, janky, unorthodox kind of like funk metal riffery combined with some really great fucking hooks and some more thrashy beatdowns. Meanwhile, tracks like Mind Clock and Quest for Nothing manage to find that extra sweet, ooey gooey sweet spot in between the classic sounds and flavors of records like Killing Technology, Dimension Hatros, and Nothing Face. Some of the tightest and tastiest guitar licks on the entire record are found on just these two numbers, as are some of the best vocals. I challenge you not to sing along to the gang vocals in Quest for Nothing on repeat listens. Speaking of Quest for Nothing, I really like how this track eventually transforms into something a little bit more evocative and cinematic before officially closing out, introducing some very surreal vocal harmonies and some very hypnotic acoustic guitar work, and then transitioning quite seamlessly into the monumentally weird and crazed and downright schizophrenic Memory Failure. Snake's very painful and anguished vocals combined with the somewhat intentionally awkward avant-garde and thrash metal beats and riffs makes it feel like you're watching somebody slowly descend into madness, like they're suffering from Alzheimer's or dementia or something like that, true to the song's title, Memory Failure. Making for a truly devastating album closer, possibly the most cathartic song on the record, and maybe even one of the best songs that Voivod have ever written. And remarkably, amidst all of this high-concept, artsy-fartsy kind of avant-garde metal wankery and confusion, Voivod managed to squeeze in a relatively straightforward kind of 80s metal banger like Sleeves Off. I mean, straightforward by the standards of Voivod in this album, mind you, because, you know, even a conventional track still feels somewhat unconventional thanks to the bells and whistles and the colorful palette typically expected of Voivod. But underneath all of that lies a pretty gnarly, pretty greasy, pretty sexy kind of vintage speed metal banger with some bass and guitar solos that honestly would not be out of place on a very early Voivod cut or even some very early Megadeth or Metallica. Honestly, this is the best Voivod have sounded in a long fucking time. I have no issues whatsoever in regards to bass, vocal, or percussion performances. These guys are so happy to do what they're doing, and that enthusiasm is genuinely infectious. I have to single out Daniel Mongrain, aka Chewy, in particular, because filling in for a guitarist like Piggy is really fucking tough. Piggy had a very unique writing style. He had a very unique guitar tone and playing style. There's really no other guitarist in the world that sounds quite like him or that wrote songs quite like him. And incredibly, Chewy has been able to replicate so much of what made Piggy such a great guitarist without completely copying him, without stealing anything from him. He's injected a lot of his own influences and ideas into the music. I would argue that a lot of these compositions rival that of what we might have heard on some classic Voivod records that Piggy worked on. Honestly, for me, this is an easy 4.5 out of 5. I think this is an incredible fucking record. I will concede that I'm probably a touch biased. I am, by my own admission, a total fucking fanboy. But you know what? I really don't fucking care. I love Voivod. I'm not going to apologize for loving Voivod, and I'm not going to apologize for Synchro Anarchy giving me everything I want from a Voivod album. I didn't apologize when I freaked the fuck out over new records from Napalm Death and Carcass and At the Gates, and I'm not going to do the same now with Voivod. Fuck you. I love this band and I love this album. If you also love this band, I see no reason whatsoever why you would not also love this album. If you're brand new to Voivod, I would actually maybe recommend this over something like Nothing Face or Killing Technology, because I feel like it's a really good smorgasbord, a really good combination of everything that has defined Voivod over the course of the past 35, 40 years or so. What more can I say, folks? It's Voivod. It's an incredible album. 4.5 out of 5. Synchro Anarchy. Holy shit. Please go check it out. You will not fucking regret it. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? Thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. Make sure you check out my interview with Voivod's lead singer Snake. It'll be either here or here. I don't really fucking know. It'll be somewhere. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.